You know how every workplace has that one person who somehow manages to stir up trouble even when they're not supposed to? The one who thrives on whispers, side eyes, and secrets that may or may not even be true.
Yeah.
That's her. But before I get into her, let me back up and set the stage. I work in a mid-sized corporate office. Not flashy, not glamorous, but stable. We deal with logistics, contracts, vendor accounts, all the behind-the-scenes stuff that keeps companies running. I'm in my mid-30s, a little older than most of my team, and I've always been the kind of guy who likes to keep my head down, do the work, and go home. I'm not flashy, I'm not into the office drama, and I definitely don't go looking for fights. If anything, I'm probably the kind of coworker you forget is even there, reliable, steady, the guy who gets the report in on time without making a fuss. But in an environment where gossip is currency, being quiet and professional makes you a target. And that's where she comes in. Her name was Monica. Mid-40s, polished to perfection, always in designer blouses and heels that clicked across the office floor like she was walking a runway instead of an accounting department. On the surface, she had it all together. Charming smile, quick wit, always knew how to compliment the right people at the right time. But behind that smile? Poison. Pure poison. Monica wasn't just a gossip, she was the gossip. The self-appointed queen of the break room. The kind of woman who'd lean in just a little too close, lower her voice, and drop a little grenade of information that would explode in 3 different departments by lunch. And people fed into it. Some out of boredom, some out of fear, some just because they wanted to be in her good graces. But make no mistake, Monica ran the rumor mill. At first, I figured, fine. Every workplace has a Monica. If I just keep my head down, she'll stay focused on someone else. But I was wrong. Way wrong. The first time I realized how dangerous she could be was during a Monday morning staff meeting. Everyone was dragging, sipping coffee, waiting for the manager to get started. Monica was sitting near the front, legs crossed, phone in hand, smirking like she had a secret. And of course she did. She leaned over to the girl next to her, a new hire named Emily, and whispered something. Emily's eyes went wide, her face turning red. A few minutes later, the whispers had spread 3 chairs down. By the time the meeting ended, half the team was side-eyeing Emily, and she looked like she wanted to disappear under the table. The rumor? Monica had implied Emily was sleeping with one of the married senior managers. Total lie. Total fabrication. But Emily didn't stand a chance. Within a week, she was avoiding the lunchroom, and by the end of the month, she quit. That's when it clicked for me. Monica wasn't just some harmless chatterbox. She was a shark. And blood in the water was any coworker who wasn't ready to play her game. For a while, I told myself to just steer clear. No small talk in the kitchen, no late-night texts, no conversations she could twist. I thought I was safe. But here's the thing about people like Monica. If you don't feed them, they come looking for food. And apparently, one quiet, steady, mind-his-own-business guy like me was just too tempting a target. It started small. One day, I overheard her telling someone in the copy room that I was aloof, that I thought I was better than everyone else. Harmless enough, right? Office chatter. Then it escalated. She started making little digs, always with a smile. "Careful," she'd say to a coworker when I walked by. "John doesn't like it when people make mistakes." Or she'd look at my shirt and go, "Oh, you still shop there? That's brave." Little things. Death by 1,000 cuts. At first, I ignored it. But soon I started noticing the looks. The way people seemed hesitant around me. How conversations would stop when I walked into the room. And then the real bomb dropped. One Friday afternoon, I was packing up my bag to leave when my buddy Mark pulled me aside. "Hey," he said, lowering his voice. "You need to know something. Monica's been telling people you got divorced because you cheated." I froze. What? Mark nodded grimly. She said she heard it from someone in HR. Which, obviously, is bullshit. But people are starting to talk. Now here's the kicker. I had been divorced a few years back. It wasn't messy, it wasn't dramatic, just two people who grew apart. But Monica didn't care about facts. She took that tiny piece of truth and twisted it into a weapon. I felt my stomach drop. My personal life wasn't just being whispered about, it was being broadcast, exaggerated, turned into her entertainment. And I realized I was her new target. From that moment on, Monica's focus was on me. Every time I walked into the office, I could feel her eyes on me, scanning, searching for ammunition. If I stayed late, she'd joke that I must not have a life outside of work. If I left early, she'd imply I was lazy. Once, I overheard her telling someone that she thought I was hiding something. That phrase, hiding something, it spread like wildfire. Suddenly, people were looking at me differently, like they were wondering what dark secret I was keeping locked away. And the worst part? I started doubting myself. Was I giving off the wrong impression? Was I too quiet? Too reserved? I'd go home at night and replay conversations in my head, wondering how she'd twist them, what she'd spread the next day. It was exhausting. But here's the thing about Monica, she was clever, but she wasn't careful. And while she thought she was untouchable, she didn't realize I was watching her just as closely as she watched me. I noticed the way she lingered after phone calls, whispering to herself. I noticed the slips, the times she'd share something a little too personal, something she clearly didn't want getting out. And I thought, interesting. Because if Monica's power came from knowing everyone else's secrets, what would happen if people started knowing hers? I didn't act right away. Revenge takes patience. But in that moment, the seed was planted. And I knew, one day, her own gossip was going to burn her. The weeks after Monica put her sights on me felt like living under a microscope. Every word I said, every move I made, somehow found its way through her filter and came out the other side distorted, magnified, and dripping with venom. And the worst part? People bought it. That's the thing about gossip. It doesn't need to be true. It just needs to be juicy. It started subtle. One Monday morning, I walked into the office and noticed two people from my team suddenly stop their conversation as soon as I got close. They gave me this fake smile. You know the kind, where their eyes don't match the curve of their lips, and then they scattered like pigeons. That was when I knew Monica had been busy. Later that same day, I overheard my own name drifting out of the break room. I paused in the hallway, leaning against the wall, pretending to check my phone. Yeah, apparently he has anger issues, one voice said. Anger issues? Another voice chimed in. Monica said she saw him slam his desk the other day when he was on a call. She said she thinks he's a little unstable. I wanted to laugh. I hadn't slammed anything. I dropped a damn stapler. But in Monica's version, I was suddenly the office hothead. That's how it always worked with her. She didn't invent lies out of thin air. She exaggerated, twisted, sharpened. She'd take a mundane moment and carve it into a weapon. You sneeze in a meeting? He's sick all the time, probably faking it to get sympathy. You get quiet one afternoon? He's moody, maybe depressed, maybe dangerous. You joke with a coworker? He's crossing lines, probably inappropriate. With Monica, everything became sinister. And soon, people started looking at me like I was radioactive. One afternoon, I stayed late to finish up some contract reviews. By the time I packed up, the office was almost empty, just me and Monica at opposite ends of the floor. I didn't even look at her. Just grabbed my bag, locked my drawer, and headed out. The next morning, I overheard someone say, "Yeah, Monica said he was hanging around her desk last night, made her uncomfortable." My blood boiled. I had been 30 feet away from her. Now suddenly I was a creep? That's when it hit me. She wasn't just smearing my reputation casually anymore. She was building a narrative. Anger issues. Unstable. Inappropriate. Creepy. She was painting a picture, piece by piece, of a guy nobody wanted around. It got worse. One Friday, during our weekly team huddle, my manager casually dropped, "By the way, let's make sure we're all keeping communication professional, both in person and outside of work." Everyone nodded, eyes darting toward me. And I knew. Monica had been whispering again. Sure enough, that afternoon, my buddy Mark pulled me aside. "She told Karen you've been texting her late at night," he said. I blinked. "Texting who?" "Her." "Monica. She told Karen you're obsessive, that you keep finding excuses to reach out after hours." I was floored. I hadn't texted Monica once in my life. Not once. But the damage was already done. My boss didn't ask for proof. HR didn't get involved. Nobody thought to check my phone. Because in an office, perception is reality. And Monica was shaping that perception every day. By now, I was boiling inside. But here's the thing about me: I don't blow up. I don't yell. I don't give people the outburst they're waiting for. Instead, I get quiet, patient, focused. And while Monica was spreading lies about me, I was starting to collect truths about her. See, the thing about someone who spends their life digging into other people's business is, they get careless with their own. And I had already noticed cracks. One evening, I stayed behind to finish up some reports. I wasn't the only one. Monica was still there too, chattering away on her cell phone, clearly forgetting that the office wasn't empty. I kept typing, pretending not to hear. But I was listening. Every word. "I told him I was working late, but he doesn't need to know I was out with you," she whispered, her voice sharp. "No, don't text me right now. He checks my phone." I froze. Her husband. She was talking about her husband. And just like that, the first real weapon dropped into my lap. The queen of gossip had a secret of her own. A big one. I didn't move that night. I didn't say a word. I kept my face blank, my typing steady. But inside I was grinning. Because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't just the prey. I had leverage. And I was going to bide my time. Let her keep spinning her little web, let her keep tightening it around me. Because when the moment came, I was going to pull the thread that unraveled it all. If Act 2 was a slow bleed, Act 3 was the moment the knife twisted. Monica had been needling me for weeks. Every day, some new whisper, some new concern, she'd planted in the right ears. My reputation wasn't just bruised anymore, it was bleeding out. I could feel it in the way people avoided me in the break room, the way conversations stopped when I walked by, the way my boss gave me that patronizing, cautious tone like he was handling fragile glass. But the breaking point, the real breaking point, came on a Tuesday. It started with a meeting. Just a normal project update with the team. We were halfway through when Monica, smiling that sugar-sweet smile, leaned forward and said, "Can I just bring something up? I don't want to cause any issues, but..." Everyone went still. That was her favorite trick. "I don't want to cause issues." Which, of course, meant she was about to cause all the issues. I think maybe we need to talk about professionalism. Sometimes when people, when they get frustrated, they can make others feel unsafe. And I know we all want a respectful environment. Her eyes flicked toward me. Just quick enough for everyone else to notice, just long enough for the message to land. And just like that, the rumor she'd been seeding for weeks, about me having anger issues, had graduated into an official team conversation. Nobody said my name. She didn't have to. I sat there, jaw tight, hands folded on the table, and I smiled. Because if I showed even a flicker of anger, even one clenched fist or one sharp tone, I'd be proving her point. So I stayed calm. patient, silent. But inside, something shifted. That was the day I decided, no more defense. No more waiting for her to get bored and move on. I was going to fight back. The thing about Monica was that she thrived on attention. She needed an audience. And she always thought she was the smartest person in the room. But when you're too busy pointing fingers at everyone else, you stop paying attention to the cracks in your own armor. And her armor was already full of holes. Remember that phone call I overheard? The one where she mentioned lying to her husband, sneaking out to see someone else? That wasn't just gossip fuel. That was dynamite. And the more I listened, the more dynamite I found. She got careless. One morning, I passed by her desk and saw her scrolling through messages on her phone, grinning like a teenager. She didn't even notice me. I caught just enough words over her shoulder. Last night was amazing, can't wait to see you again. Not exactly something you'd want your spouse to stumble across. Another time, in the cafeteria, she sat with her little circle of friends and bragged about how she'd convinced her manager to approve expenses for a client dinner. Except the so-called client was just her and her friend. I sipped my coffee in silence, and I memorized every word. See, I wasn't looking for gossip. I wasn't looking for petty rumors to throw back at her. I was looking for truths. Hard, undeniable truths. Because the only thing stronger than gossip is reality. But even as I quietly gathered ammo, Monica wasn't letting up. She'd gotten bolder, crueler. One afternoon, I walked into the break room and heard her laugh. Loud, sharp, cutting. "Oh, careful," she said, smirking at the others. "Don't get too close. He might snap. You know how he gets." She didn't even lower her voice. Didn't even pretend anymore. She wanted me to hear it. That was the moment. I stood there, hand on the fridge door, and I thought, she wants me to lose it. She wants me to explode right here, in front of everyone, so she can finally say, "See? I told you so." But I didn't. I just smiled, grabbed my water, and walked out. And as I did, I made a promise to myself. If she wanted a story, I'd give her one. Not the story she expected. Not the story she controlled. I'd give her a story that would end her little reign once and for all. And that's when I started planting the first seeds. Casual conversations with coworkers, little questions dropped here and there. "Hey, did you ever notice how Monica stays late a lot? Funny, right? Kind of weird how she always knows everyone's business. How does she find the time? Someone said she's been expensing a lot of dinners lately. I wonder who the client is." Nothing direct. Nothing accusatory. Just curiosity. And curiosity is contagious. Within a week, people weren't whispering about me anymore. They were whispering about her. Not loudly. Not openly. But it was there, humming beneath the surface, like a current shifting direction. And Monica? She didn't notice. Because she was too busy watching me. You know what they say about revenge? The sweetest part isn't the strike. It's the silence before it, when you know the other person has no clue what's about to hit them. And Monica, she had no clue. By this point, she'd gotten cocky. She thought she'd won. The whispers about me had died down, sure, but she assumed it was because she'd proven her point. I could see it in the smug way she walked around the office. Hips swinging, chin tilted just a little too high. Like a queen surveying her conquered kingdom. But I wasn't conquered. I was waiting. And while she paraded around, I'd been busy. Busy listening. Busy collecting. Busy planting. The office is a funny place. People think HR is this big, scary authority, but most of the time they don't see things until it's shoved under their noses. And people like Monica? They count on that. They think they can gossip, bully, and manipulate in the shadows because that's just how offices are. But shadows disappear when you flip on the light. And I was ready to flip the switch. It started with the expense reports. I wasn't nosy by nature, but when you work in a place long enough, you pick up things. People leave files on printers. Spreadsheets get emailed to the wrong person. And when someone like Monica keeps bragging about client dinners, sooner or later the receipts tell a different story. And boy, did it. I didn't need to hack anything. I didn't break rules. I just paid attention. Her client dinners weren't with clients. Half the time, the dates didn't even line up with official meetings. One dinner was on a Saturday night. Another one listed the same guest name twice, like she couldn't even be bothered to make it look real. It was sloppy, arrogant, and dangerous, because HR might look the other way on a rumor. But financial dishonesty? That's blood in the water. Still, I didn't move right away. I let it simmer. I let her dig deeper, brag louder, push harder. And then came the golden opportunity. It was a Friday, the kind of day where everyone just wants to coast into the weekend. Monica waltzed into the break room, coffee in hand, and decided to put on a little show. "Oh my God," she said loudly, looking at her little audience. "You guys won't believe this. Apparently some people in this office think I'm the one gossiping. Can you believe that? Like really? Me?" She laughed, that high-pitched, fake laugh. And then, she looked right at me. "Hey," she said sweetly. "You wouldn't happen to know where that idea came from, would you?" There was the challenge, the dare. I met her eyes, calm as ever, and smiled. "Actually," I said, "I think people are just starting to notice things on their own." The room went quiet. She blinked, just for a second, before pasting her smile back on. But I saw it. That tiny flicker of doubt. That was the moment I knew I had her. The following Monday, I walked into HR with a neat little folder. Inside, copies of her expense reports, notes on dates that didn't match, and a few carefully worded statements I'd gathered from coworkers. Nothing dramatic. Nothing flashy. Just facts. "Look," I told them, "I don't want to cause drama, but this seems off, and it's affecting morale." HR loves words like that. Affecting morale. You could practically see their ears perk up. They promised to look into it. Which, in HR language, meant, "We already know this looks bad, but give us a week to cover our bases." And a week later, the explosion came. Monica was called into a closed-door meeting. The blinds were shut. The hushed voices carried just enough for everyone to know something was going down. An hour later, she stormed out, red-faced, eyes wild, phone clutched in her hand like it was her last lifeline. She didn't look at me, didn't look at anyone, just grabbed her bag and left. The whispers started instantly. "What happened? Did you hear? Something about her expenses." Nobody knew the full story, not yet. But they knew enough. And just like that, the gossip queen had become the gossip. Now, here's the part one didn't expect. I thought I'd feel triumphant, victorious, maybe even smug. But what I felt was relief. Because it wasn't about humiliating her in front of everyone. It wasn't about turning the whispers back on her. It was about proving, to myself, to everyone else, that truth matters. That you can fight back against a bully without becoming one yourself. Of course, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a petty satisfaction in it too. Watching her empire crumble. Hearing her name muttered in the break room the same way she'd once done to mine. Knowing she couldn't spin her way out of this, not when the numbers spoke louder than her lies. That was sweet. Darkly sweet. After that day, the office felt lighter. People talked to me again. My boss started treating me like a human being instead of a liability. And Monica? She didn't come back. Not officially, anyway. Word was she'd been asked to resign. HR never confirmed it outright, but we all knew what that meant. The queen had been dethroned. And all it took was patience. Patience and letting her own secrets burn the very web she tried to trap me in. After Monica left, the office didn't just go quiet. It shifted. You ever notice how when a storm finally passes, the air feels different? Like the pressure's lifted, like you can breathe again? That's how it felt. For months, every time I'd walked into the building, I braced myself for whispers, for side eyes, for her next little jab. But suddenly, it was gone. People smiled at me again. Not big, dramatic smiles, but the kind of everyday acknowledgement that had been missing for months. I'd grab a coffee in the break room, and someone would actually stand next to me and start small talk instead of making an excuse to leave. The weird tension that had been hanging over everything, gone. It was subtle, but it was everything. Of course, her shadow still lingered. Monica had built herself into the centerpiece of office gossip, and when the centerpiece disappears, people don't just stop talking. They shift the conversation. Now the whispers weren't about me. They were about her. Did you hear she was double expensing dinners? Someone said her husband found out about, I heard HR still digging through her files. I stayed quiet. I never confirmed or denied anything. I didn't need to. Because the beauty of it? The very same rumor mill she used against me was now chewing her up and spitting her out. And I didn't have to lift a finger. But here's the thing I learned, and this surprised me. Revenge feels good. Don't let anyone tell you it doesn't. When someone spends months trying to tear you down, and you finally get to watch them choke on their own poison, there's a rush to it. But it doesn't last. That high fades. What sticks around is quieter. It's the knowledge that you stood your ground, that you didn't let them win, that you let the truth do the work instead of lowering yourself to their level. And for me, that was enough. Did I feel sorry for her? Not really. She made her bed and she lay in it. But I did think about her sometimes. About how much energy she must have wasted, keeping up the lies, spinning the stories, always watching everyone else but never looking in the mirror. It's exhausting living like that. And in the end, it always catches up. She wasn't the first gossip bully I'd met, and she probably won't be the last. But she taught me something important. People like her don't destroy you with facts. They destroy you with noise. And the best way to beat noise is with silence. With patience. With facts that can't be twisted. One afternoon, a few weeks after she was gone, I was leaving work when one of my coworkers, someone who definitely believed Monica's stories early on, stopped me by the door. "Hey," she said, a little awkward. "I just wanted to say, I'm glad you're still here." I nodded. Me too. And in that moment, I realized I didn't need Monica's downfall to define me. I just needed to keep being me. Steady. Honest. The kind of person who doesn't play the gossip game. Because in the long run, that's what lasts. So yeah, maybe it was petty. Maybe I enjoyed watching her empire collapse more than I should have. But if you've ever been on the receiving end of someone like her, you'd understand. It wasn't just revenge. It was justice, wrapped in silence and patience. And honestly, that's the kind of victory that sticks. And that's the story of how my office gossip bully finally got burned by her own secrets. What about you? Have you ever dealt with someone like this at work? Did you get your own little taste of justice? Drop your story in the comments, hit like if you enjoyed this, and subscribe for more tales of revenge and karma. Because sometimes, the best revenge is letting people destroy themselves.